Okay, look, it brings me no joy to do this. I'm hoping that this does not become a rant. I want to try to keep this as like informed and concise and genuine and objective as I can. But I'm pretty sure my emotions are going to get the best of me because I'm very angry about this and I just want to get my thoughts out there. I don't care how many people see this, I just need to talk about it because it's so infuriating. Um, I I love the lefty political commentator Jimmy Dore. I think he is amazing. He's so funny. Generally speaking, his opinions are really good. Um, and he's one of the people that made me kind of come to terms with my political ideology and embrace my leftism, essentially. And I found Jimmy in about 2017, I think it was, and he was great back then. He had a lot of love for Bernie, and he was very positive toward Bernie. But that started to change in about like 2018. In 2018, he started to become a lot harder on Bernie, and he started to fall in love with Tulsi Gabbard, who was a presidential candidate, obviously for the 2020 race. And that's fine. I mean, having another person that you're a fan of, that's okay. I wasn't inherently opposed to that. But it started to become more of an apparent problem whenever he started to really have a excessive bias toward Tulsi. He would praise Tulsi all the time, but he would criticize Bernie all the time. It was insane how much he would praise Tulsi and criticize Bernie. He really throughout like the past 2 years or so, he has basically refused to acknowledge any of Tulsi's flaws. Her backtracking and flip flopping on Medicare for All. There's videos of her saying she supports Medicare for all who want it. She says she wants to make healthcare affordable, which is one of those just like platitude words that doesn't mean anything. Her vote on the anti BDS bill, she voted in favor of it, which is basically a suppression of freedom of speech. And also, it shows that she's kind of not supporting Palestinians. And then also throughout the debates that we were in, like a big thing that people praise Tulsi for, right, is her debate performances because she single-handedly ended Kamala Harris' campaign, and that's great. But she never ever went after Joe Biden. Even in interviews, whenever people would try to make her go after Joe Biden, she refused to. And maybe that's why she did what we're going to get to in a minute. She did something yesterday that we're going to talk about. Um, now here's the thing, right? A lot of lefties out there, they give Jimmy a hard time for going after Bernie. I don't agree with this because a lot of Jimmy's criticisms of Bernie are legit. He goes after Bernie for being too nice to Joe Biden, for sucking up to the establishment too much, for talking about unity and just being like Trump bad, any other Democrat will be better, things like that. Those are really fair criticisms of Bernie. I like that about Jimmy, in fact. So that's not my problem with Jimmy. My problem with Jimmy is the fact that he never, ever will acknowledge any criticism of Tulsi. And if he does acknowledge it, he somehow is able to dodge it. He will not embrace any of her flaws. But um, a lot of lefties out there who like Tulsi, they lost pretty much all respect for her yesterday. I had a decent amount of respect for her. I I disagree with her on a lot. I certainly would never like her more than Bernie by any means, but I respected her. That changed yesterday for me because she endorsed Joe Biden yesterday. Now, everyone in like the left tube, you know, of YouTube who watches, Secular Talk and Rational National, Sam Cedar, all those guys. Um, we all, collectively were like, what's Jimmy gonna say? Because Jimmy is the left tuber that is like obsessed with Tulsi. So everyone was curious what Jimmy was gonna say. Well, unfortunately, Jimmy immediately blamed Bernie. Just look at the title of the video. I'm going to put it up on screen. Just from the title of the video, it's almost laughable. He will immediately switch to blaming Bernie for this somehow. Now, he made some arguments in the video, and we're going to address them, but I find pretty much all of them ridiculous. Now, one of the things that Jimmy and a lot of like Tulsi fans who refuse to like criticize her either are saying that Bernie is going to endorse Biden as well. You're right. You're correct. If Bernie cannot get the lead on Biden, which he probably can't at this point, if Biden becomes the nominee, Bernie is going to endorse him. Here's the difference. Bernie is going to endorse Biden over Trump. Tulsi is endorsing Biden over Bernie. Now, if Tulsi was principled, she would never endorse the most pro-war candidate that has been in this race, yet she has done exactly that. And throughout the debates, as I mentioned earlier, she's never gone after Biden for his war record. She's never gone after Biden for anything. And Jimmy, in this video where he talks about her endorsement of him, instead of acknowledging that Tulsi never attacked Biden, he asks instead, why doesn't Bernie attack Biden? And that's actually a good point. Now, obviously, in the one-on-one debate that happened a few days ago, at that point, Bernie had to attack Biden. There was nobody else to attack. But before then, Bernie didn't go after Biden, and he should have. So I agree with that. But at the same time, Tulsi has gone out of her way to make foreign policy and stopping wars her number one issue. So for her to never attack him, the most pro-war candidate, that just shows that she's not being principled. She never was being principled, because if she was, she would go after him for that, probably before any other candidate. And Jimmy is always talking about how Bernie needs to be principled. Bernie needs to stop falling in line behind the establishment. And I agree with Jimmy on that. But then Tulsi, she falls in line behind the establishment, and he refuses to criticize her. He refuses to blame her. He immediately is like, what did Bernie do? Bernie didn't do nothing. There's no evidence that Bernie did anything. On the contrary, the fact that Tulsi has always refused to go after Biden, there's suspicion that there's been some backroom discussions between Biden and Tulsi, or something along those lines. Maybe it's been part of a longer plan, and that's why Tulsi has never gone after Biden, and she's finally just pulling the trigger and endorsing him. And she's endorsing him now to try to make it look like she's only endorsing him because he's the candidate that the people have chosen. When in reality, this could have been planned for a long time. In addition, Jimmy goes after Bernie for, again, giving Biden too many passes and I see, Joe's a good friend of mine. That whole Bernie thing. He goes after Bernie for saying that too much. And I agree with that, once again. He should stop calling Joe his friend. It drives me nuts. It drives all kinds of people nuts. Yet, Jimmy is actually friends with Tulsi. Friends in quotes. And as a result of him being friends with her, he's refusing to go after her when she's being explicitly pro-establishment, when she's explicitly falling in line and being unprincipled. He is participating in cognitive dissonance. He is holding Bernie to one set of standards and Tulsi to a different set of standards. Tulsi is making the same mistakes that Bernie has, that he has gone after Bernie for, but he refuses to attack Tulsi for it. This is childish of him. This is one of his most ridiculous stances of all time, and his sycophantic nature toward Tulsi is disgusting, in my opinion. His just seething rage at Bernie that is completely unwarranted is disgusting, and I know that he is going to lose viewership for this. He's going to lose support. The like to dislike ratio on that video is one of his worst, and there's good reason for that. If he loses subscribers, if he loses respect over this, I think he deserves to lose that respect. He deserves to lose those subscribers because he's being a ridiculous child with this stance. He needs to get over himself, and people are saying, oh, well, he just needs time to grieve. Who the fuck needs time to grieve over a political candidate? It's not like he lost somebody in his life. He's had time to grieve. Apparently, he's needed time to grieve for months upon months. He's been grieving about how she was anti-BDS. He's been grieving for months about how she's not actually in support of Medicare for all. She's super flip-floppy and milquetoast about it. Apparently he's grieving over all of that too, and he's never gotten over it. So I guess we just need to give him a few years to get over all of this and finally come to terms with the fact that Tulsi is not this amazing progressive champion. He has been obsessed over a mediocre candidate at best. Fuck me. I'm so disappointed in Jimmy.